Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming today. We greatly appreciate your attendance for today's Lunch and Learn. Today we are presented by the YMCA of Niagara and really looking at inclusion at work. We will be looking at how to create an inclusive workplace culture. We're going to look at how we can attract talent and retention, really emphasizing employee productivity and making your organization stand out in this very crowded market. I am the vice chair of the Women in Agri Council, part of the GNCC. The Women in Agri Council is made up of approximately 15 volunteers that really help with programming and advocacy for women in business within Niagara. We really aim to foster the growth and success of women in business within the Niagara region by empowering women in Niagara to be at our economic and social best. Today is a special lunch and learn as it is comprised solely of women in terms of our host, our sponsors, and our speaker today. We will be looking at a quick word from our sponsors. We'll be meeting with Rose Allison, who will be discussing the DEI information, and then followed by a Q&A session. So we do have some questions that were submitted to us earlier today, but please don't hesitate to enter anything that arises during our presentation that we can touch upon and discuss later. So again, feel free to use that text box and we'll see what we can brainstorm together. I want to start out by introducing Deanna Diella, General Employment Manager of Immigrant Services. YMCA is a sponsor of today's event, and we are grateful for Deanna and sponsorship so we can continue to have lunch and learns like today's. I'd also like to introduce Shauna Clarkson of C.R. Smith Financial, one of our sponsors, who is a development business partner who is going to talk about our 5-minute financial download.
Thanks, everyone. Hi, my name is Shauna Clarkson, and I appreciate the opportunity of speaking today. I'm here with my colleagues, Brandon Curry, Matt Milner, Jay Fast, and we are from C.R. Smith Financial Services. And this month, C.R. Smith Financial will be celebrating 50 years in business, so super excited about that. For our download today, we have 3 main facets of our business that I want to talk about. Insurance, which encompasses life insurance, health insurance, and disability. Wealth, we are a full service brokerage that has partnerships with all our major fund companies in Canada, specializing in financial planning, aiding family transfers of assets and wealth into the next generation to help businesses in their succession and organization planning. The third would be group and personal benefits. We are one of the largest group benefit brokers that aid businesses in full customized benefit packages and group RSP plans. On the topic of these facets, the 3 of them, we also provide our clients with guidance when they're going through major milestones, life milestones, and a couple of them relate to business owners that could be in the room today. Opening up with a business partnership is a big challenge that, or questions that our clients have, but exciting time. Another topic could be getting separated from a business partner or a life partner, right? We're looking at both aspects. And the importance of utilizing buy-sell agreements. I don't know if many of you have them, but a cohabitation agreement or a prenup could be talked upon as well. So the importance of speaking to legal advice and proper financial planning, I think, is a really big piece that I'm going to talk to in a few seconds here. But we've really found several of our clients face a lot of unknown and either when we're contemplating transitioning through a separation personally or with their business. And in theme today of women in business, I want to share a few stats and 5 areas that everyone can focus on when going through a separation, personally or business sense. So 37% of self-employed individuals are in Canada today are women, which is really exciting. 33 of them know what happens to them financially upon a separation of a business relationship. So to help educate you, to maybe make this number stronger, increase those numbers with knowledge and women in business, the first thing I want to focus on is understanding tax implications. Depending on how you transfer your money out of a corporation or sell assets, there's different tax liabilities that it's different than a traditional income stream. So you want to look up for that stuff. Number 2 would be knowing your rights. In various laws, depending on the structure of your business, and depending on where you're located, there could be different rights known to business owners. This is more common and more impactful probably on the personal side, but good to seek legal advice just to kind of know where you stand. The third thing would be formalizing an agreement with a business partner or with a personal partner as well. Buy-sell agreements are very commonly known I'm on the financial planning industry, and something that we work very closely with our business clients within the practice. Protecting what you build and what you contribute to your business is very important, right? It's your livelihood. If something were to happen to you or your partner, you also have to look out for that sense. Do you have a spouse that if something were to happen to you, does the business pass on to your spouse? Does your current business partner want to work with your spouse? Who knows? And having a buy-sell agreement or some sort of cohabitation agreement could help all those things facilitate any change that may happen in the future. Also, importantly, do it regularly, right? Life changes, so do businesses. So make sure that you're staying up to date with all these planning. And then understanding the division of assets and properties that is number 4, right? What is shareable, right? What do you want to keep? What do you want to separate if something happens to your business or in their personal life? And 5, reviewing your personal estate plan. So many of you are business owners on this screen, but it does impact your personal life as well, right? Business and life can go in tandem. So a couple things: make sure that your will is up to date on a regular basis, review beneficiary designations, and review titles of property held jointly, right? Whether it's business or personal. 3 more stats to wrap up our advice for today. 86% of women say, I don't clearly know what happens or what are my financial goals and how do I achieve them, right? Here's a crazy stat that I actually found. 1% of women today in Canada feel confident they are financially secure enough to start their own business on their own. Really wild for us. 82% say, I don't have the knowledge to ask the right questions about my investments. So these are all crazy stats that we see quite often, and we're so excited to work with women in business and anyone in business for that fact to make sure that these numbers and this confidence is much stronger. So thanks so much. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you to both of our sponsors. We could not do these events without everybody's support. Fantastic. So I'd like to get to the star of our show today, Rose Allison. Rose is a diversity, equity, inclusion partner and a solution-oriented HR professional. With more than 17 years of advisory experience in HR training, she has built a people-focused career in many diverse roles. As a member of the disability community, she also brings her lived experience and advocacy to deliver a holistic and inclusive approach to people and culture. She's passionate about establishing trustworthy relationships, solving problems conscientiously, and championing for personal and professional growth. Rose holds a BA in sociology from the University of Western, a postgraduate certificate in human resources management, and a micro-credential in inclusive communication, DEI. She also lives by the philosophy that learning is about the journey, not the designation, and has continued to hone specialized skills in people solutions. Rose is strongly committed to helping others discover, learn, and grow through her mentorship, facilitation, and effective communication with diverse audiences. She has served as co-chair for an employee resource group, which develops several education and awareness incentives. She also mentors with Easter Seals Canada and the Canadian Credit Union Association, teaches financial literacy through the Junior Achievers of Southwestern Ontario, and collaborates with Brock University's Continuing Education Department to deliver and develop adult learning sessions. Impressive, Rose. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Stacy. And hi, good afternoon, everybody. Very excited to be part of the Women in Niagara's Lunch and Learn today to share a little bit about inclusion in the workplace and how we can help it become more of a reality. So with any luck here, we're going to successfully share the presentation today. Yeah, that looks like it's on there. Excellent. Great. So again, welcome everybody, and thank you for taking your lunchtime to talk about inclusion with me today. As Stacy mentioned, I am currently the DEI/BR partner with Meridian Credit Union, where I do focus on improving inclusion and awareness in the workplace and helping to foster an inclusive culture and diverse culture as well. So today's topic is something that I'm very passionate about and had a lot of fun picking out some really important themes and ideas to share with you all today. So the couple of topics that I'd like to go over with everyone today, I can break down into three sections. The first is gaining a little bit more understanding about what inclusion is. The second is discussing psychological safety. And the third is talking about a few strategies that we can use and implement in the workplace to build inclusivity. So the first topic for today, what is inclusion? There's a lot of buzzwords around, especially in the workplaces today, about diversity, equity, inclusion, the feeling of belonging, acknowledging reconciliation. And many organizations may call these a few different things. What I really wanted to focus on today was talking about what is inclusion exactly. So we may feel that, inclusion is just bringing everybody together. We have solid representation from varying backgrounds, ethnicities, genders, etc. But inclusion really goes a few steps further than that. So inclusion really focuses on the recognition and the value that we have on diversity. So not just about having it and having the representation, but really truthfully recognizing it, valuing it, and acknowledging it. Inclusion also has an element of dignity and respect to it. So again, it goes further than just that representation to actually treating everyone with respect. It also incorporates equal access. So equal access to resources, to opportunities, both professionally, personally, educationally, and then also takes into account the practice of including and accommodating others. So inclusion really reaches those depth areas where it involves more conscious recognition, deliberate action, and practice and participation. So ensuring that you not only have the representation at the table, but that you are doing everything that you can to ensure that they are participating equally amongst the group. When it comes to psychological safety, this is the second piece that I felt was very important to discuss with everyone today, as it really does play a key role in inclusive practices and cultures in the workplace. So what is psychological safety? Again, maybe another buzzword that people have been hearing. But psychological safety is a concept that refers to an individual's perception of the consequences of taking what is known as interpersonal risk as part of a team or in a workplace setting. It's the belief that you will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with your ideas, asking your questions, voicing your concerns, or even just making mistakes. So psychological safety can be broken down into three kind of buckets. The first is that embracing diversity. So as I mentioned, how inclusion really goes into that depth of the diversity aspect of not just having the representation, but really focusing on it, acknowledging it, and recognizing. Psychological safety comes from embracing that diversity. So having a welcoming, open mindset that everybody brings something unique to the table. The next bucket in psychological safety is that it is a collective effort. One person alone cannot be responsible for the psychological safety of a team. It has to be a collective effort where every team member puts in as much as they can to contribute to the space. And thirdly, much like with inclusion having a practice section to it, it does involve active participation. So it is something we have to work at. It's probably not something that's going to come very easily or may not come very naturally to everyone in the group. Much with diversity, we all bring something different. We bring history, we bring cultural differences, we may bring language differences. So we really have to be an active participant to creating that psychologically safe environment. So psychologically safe work environments promote trust and respect above all else. By embracing the diversity that everyone brings to the table that I talked about, you do allow people to perform their best. Psychological safety isn't about personal confidence or assertiveness, but rather creating that safe space at work, being that collective effort and fueled and modeled by everyone, especially leadership. Very important there. Lastly, as I mentioned, it takes the active participation by all team members to build that trust, to demonstrate respect and encouragement for open and honest communication. Dr. Timothy Clark, who is the author of The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety, likened that it can be referred to as 4 levels of a pyramid. So before an employee can fully feel psychologically safe, the layers of the pyramid need to be addressed in ascending order, much like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which you may be familiar with, that we have basic needs as human beings to fulfill and satisfy. So Dr. Clark refers to these as inclusion safety, learner safety, contributor and challenger safety. And we're going to talk a little bit, explore these a little bit more in detail. So the first level of the pyramid to working your way towards psychologically being safe in your environment, Dr. Clark refers to as the inclusion safety level. And this addresses the need to feel like you belong and you are accepted by your team. So this includes a feeling of respect, having a voice, and having that diversity being embraced by your teammates. The next level of the pyramid is the learner safety. And this is about feeling comfortable to make mistakes without the fear of being punished or judged by your teammates, and involves creating a culture where employees are encouraged and supported to take risks, to learn from them, and to grow. Once that is achieved, the team can move on to contributor safety, which is about feeling valued for your contributions and being able to share your ideas without fear of being criticized. It also involves creating a culture where individuals are empowered to contribute their unique skills and bring their talents to the workplace. The final level on top of the pyramid he refers to as the challenger safety. And this is where employees begin to feel comfortable challenging the status quo and speaking up about potential issues or concerns. This involves having a culture where individuals are encouraged to speak their minds, to offer alternative perspectives, and find solutions for continuous improvement. So consider it essential for fostering an open culture where innovation and collaboration can thrive. Psychological safety can lead to the following benefits in your organization. Number 1, the increased problem solving, which brings more creative solutions and innovation to your workplace. Improved employee engagement. This includes morale by your team, which in turn increases productivity. And lastly, a stronger sense of belonging, which can improve your retention strategies and employee satisfaction. So what are some strategies that we can use to build inclusion in our workplace? The first bucket here refers to leadership. So leadership acts as a role model. You are the beacon of your team for setting the example and leading the way for what an inclusive culture looks like within your workplace. The next piece is about educating yourself. So doing what you can to join lunch and learns like you are today, take a class or a course, just read an article, for example, and take the time to really improve on what your knowledge is, and feel free to share that with others as well. The next strategy is about speaking up. So having the courage and being empowered to speak up in the workplace if you notice that inclusion is not happening. Your voice can really make a difference, and it just takes the courage to do that. The next section is about using inclusive language. So lots of organizations or individuals as a preference, are incorporating their pronouns in their signature lines, for example. This is a very quick and easy way to adopt inclusive language strategies because it allows whomever you're communicating with to have that clear perspective when they are addressing you. Inclusive language also goes to the point of, a new team member, perhaps they have a name that you're unfamiliar with. By asking that team member how they pronounce their name is also a great demonstration of inclusive language. It shows that you are taking the time to understand and not just make assumption about how to say their name. The other strategy we can use is to support others. Not everyone is on the same stage of the journey that we might be. Some people might be quicker to advance, and some people may be a little bit slower to advance, and that's okay. Everybody moves along at their own pace. But by supporting others, offering resources, sharing information, we can encourage others to continue to move along their journey so that they get to a place where they feel that inclusion is happening as well. Another really important strategy is incorporating feedback and allowing yourself, your team, and advocating in your organization for feedback. Some of the best ways that we can continually improve ourselves and improve our workplaces is by taking feedback from our employees and putting it into action. The next strategy of great importance is mentorship. So mentorship is something very near and dear to my heart, but it also is a very adequate, proven strategy for fostering an inclusive workplace. Mentorship gives the opportunity for people to learn from each other. It is a safe and confidential environment, and often both parties can benefit from what they learn from one another. It also helps to set up that equal access that we spoke about, resource sharing or introductions, continuing to grow networks as well. Mentorship has many, many benefits in terms of advancing inclusion in your workplace. And the last strategy that I feel holds a very important place here for improving inclusion is reflecting on our own biases. Everybody has them. Biases are shaped from how we grew up, to what we believe, to where we come from, to how we were educated. Biases are present in everyone. And a strategy that we can use is encouraging our teammates and colleagues to reflect on those biases, to acknowledge them, and to look for ways to help reduce or mitigate those biases. There is, a bit to talk about previously kind of in the news about, whether unconscious bias training is actually a legitimate training. So there is some debate about that. But I think what's more important with this strategy is just the honest reflection and acknowledgement of our own biases can help us move forward into a more inclusive workplace. Included in the deck today, I know that all participants will receive a copy of this presentation. At the end, I did include a few resources that I did find very helpful with some of these topics. So if anyone would like to read a little further into some of the studies, a little bit more about Dr. Clark's pyramid for psychological safety, I've included the links to the resources right in the presentation deck for everyone as well. So thank you so much to everyone for listening today. This concludes my portion of the presentation, and I look forward to questions that everyone may have.
That was fantastic, Rose. Thank you so much. Incredibly informative. What would you say, or how would you define inclusion itself in the workplace? Just so we are consistently on the same page, working from the same foundation.
Absolutely, Stacy. Yes. So inclusion in the workplace, again, is about that feeling of being respected and valued, and not that just that you are a number or face to the organization, but that your diverse perspectives and qualities are valued and respected and taken into account.
Fantastic. Would you say that there's ever any common pitfalls when it comes to trying to define inclusion?
Right. Well, inclusion can mean something different to everybody. As I mentioned, right, we are all from very diverse backgrounds. So what might make you feel respected may not be what someone else considers to be feeling respected. So that can be a common challenge for teams. And I think the best way to overcome that is really to encourage that open communication, because the only way we learn about each other is to share. So, you know, like I said, what might be considered you feeling respected might look a little different to me, and we can share and, you know, acknowledge that together through open communication.
I love that. Just in terms of creating that safe space and making sure that everybody has a voice and feels heard. No, that's a fantastic point. And again, I encourage all of our participants today, if there's anything you want to ask Rose, please feel free to fire questions away in the chat box, and we'll make sure that everybody's covered. How would you say that organizations can really ensure that their diversity and inclusion initiatives go beyond just mere representation to create that culture where all individuals feel valued and heard?
On the organizational level, Stacy, it's really important. I talked a little bit about how the leadership has kind of that role model effect. And they really are the beacon for setting the tone of the culture. So on an organization-wide level, it is really critical that the people at the top are also practicing and being actively involved in inclusive practices. Some of them that we explored, like the use of inclusive language, the open communication, and really trying to avoid that punitive type approach to things. You know, so having strategies or policies in place where employees can feel comfortable and confident in sharing really goes a long way on an organizational wide level, so that they can move beyond just that representation and truly make it a psychologically safe and inclusive culture across the whole organization.
I think that's fantastic. You really touch on how important like that role modeling is. Yeah, no, fantastic. What role would you say psychological safety plays in fostering an inclusive work environment? And then how would it differ from other aspects of workplace culture?
Yeah, psychological safety, it's a big deal now. You know, and I think especially as more employees are exploring, you know, and more organizations are kind of advertising that bring your authentic self to work.
Yeah.
We have more employees, self-disclosing that they perhaps have disabilities or they are neurodiverse. And the most common reaction to those things has always been negative, typically in the past. So psychological safety plays a huge key in really allowing people to truthfully bring their authentic selves to work, because then their diversity is actually celebrated and practices can help make it more inclusive for them. Not every neurodiverse employee is comfortable having their camera on, for example, in a meeting. And by someone acknowledging that that's not a comfortable experience for everyone, that makes it more inclusive. So that's kind of the key driver of that, though, is that psychologically safe environment where your employees feel confident and comfortable enough to share it in the first place.
Yeah, no, that's a really great example, but so true. Question from the chat box. How can you approach leadership to tell them they are not being inclusive without undermining leadership? Ooh, good question.
Great question. Yes. So I mentioned the importance of feedback. So kind of one of the covert ways that you can use that is really utilizing whatever feedback mechanism is present in your workplace.
Okay.
Diversity, equity, inclusion, it can be a really sensitive topic. It can get into a very heated or fired up conversation very easily. So the best thing I can recommend is, if you are looking for a way to approach it, stay calm, stay cool, stay collected, think out what the major parts with examples that you can share. Because in a lot of organizations, to get people to change their opinion or to consider changing the way they do things, we have to speak their language, right? So speaking that language business, what concrete examples can you give where you can show that a more inclusive approach would be more beneficial for them? So I would say, to approach that, if you have the option for a feedback mechanism, definitely drop it in there. If that's not available to you in your organization, is there any sort of town hall or open chat forum or coffee with leadership that takes place where you can kind of drop some of these ideas professionally and respectfully, that will give the hint to leadership that it's something they need to take a look at.
That's fantastic. You mentioned feedback mechanisms. Do you have any really great examples that you've seen or you've developed or implemented?
Yeah. So number one, your employee engagement or employee satisfaction surveys. Those are the top number one place to put things if you have them. The only downfall to those is many organizations only conduct them once a year, maybe twice a year. If you are in an organization that has a diversity, equity, and inclusion program where there is regular opportunity for employee events, for example, maybe through employee resource groups, etc. If there are surveys that are deployed after these events, there's often an open character feature feedback in those surveys. Use them, definitely use them. So wherever you can find where the organization is collecting your feedback, put it in there.
I think that's great. And really, like you said, meeting employees and staff where they're at and making it accessible across the board. Yeah. And just thinking outside of the box can really make a difference. What would you say some of the best bang for your buck practical strategies or best practices for promoting inclusivity when we're looking at recruitment, hiring, or even talent management processes?
So some of the sort of, really quick sort of practical strategies that can be used is really that reflection on our own bias.
Okay.
So, is there a workshop or some training where the employees that are involved in these departments
Mhm.
could participate?
Okay.
There is also a lot of mental health and psychological safety workshops that are going on right now as well. And I feel that those are really key items for people in recruitment. You may be interviewing people who have lost their job.
Yep.
Maybe they've been downsized.
Mhm.
Maybe they disclosed an illness or disability at their workplace and it resulted to them, losing their work. We don't know what people are bringing in to these new situations. So some of the things that can be used are really quick workshops or trainings that can help us reflect on our own bias when we're dealing with these types of potentially sensitive situations like recruiting others, right?
Mhm.
And they can be done, a half day or a day. It's not something that takes months to go through, for example.
Mhm. That's a really good idea in taking that time, developing that self-awareness and what we may be bringing to the table ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and not from a place of judgment, but education and learning.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
exactly.
that's fantastic. Um, how would you recommend organizations measure and evaluate their effectiveness of their inclusivity efforts? Are there any specific metrics or indicators that are really meaningful in assessing programs?
So, number one, I did mention employee satisfaction or employee engagement surveys. You can absolutely start there because that's going to really take a temperature of the overall. So long as your employee survey is asking questions related to the sentiment that people are feeling included. If you're not asking it, you're not going to get the measurement.
Yeah.
But so long as your tool is measuring what it is you want to find out, that is a great place to start. The other metric that I've used in the workplace, after we hold an employee event
Mhm.
that is meant to promote awareness of diversity, equity, or inclusion, we analyze the attendance.
Okay.
And what does that look like as a percentage of our workforce
Mhm.
joining? And we also take metric on where are they joining from in
Oh,
our organization.
mhm.
So these metrics have been very important for us in analyzing, okay, what percent of our workforce is actually dedicating the time to reflect on their own bias, to
Mhm.
educate themselves,
Mhm.
to actively participate.
Yep.
What does that look like from the organization as a whole? And then secondly, where are people joining us from? And do we find trends in geographical areas or departmental areas? And how do we need to improve that engagement?
Okay. Any insight on how you would address some of those gaps or those trends that may come up?
Right. So departmentally wise, for example, your organization may be made up of member facing or client facing groups. It might be made up of corporate groups. It might be made up of contact center groups. So, how analyzing, are you finding that maybe none of your contact center employees are able to join?
Mhm.
Why? Right? Then reaching out to that demographic and saying, is it because you can't get the time scheduled away from your desk? Is it leadership support in you engaging? And then we work on strategies to, address leadership support, address the engagement. Maybe for a day like that, we need to have some extra staff so other people interested can join. Something like that. When
Mhm.
it comes to the geographical location, as I said, everybody is diverse and everybody is unique, and we do have different populations geographically spread out. So, what are the characteristics of that demographic that may be hindering or limiting the encouragement or support, and we build a strategy around, right, connecting, creating awareness, connecting with leaders. How can we support you to support your employees in being engaged? And the important thing, as I mentioned too in the presentation, is that not everybody is on the journey in the same spot or at the same time. But all we can do is share and let them make the choice to, move along at their own pace.
That's a really valid point, because we never want to add any judgment, right? Or reverse the facts. So how do we watch that? How do we monitor that line where enough information and encouragement is provided without, like you said, making the decisions or journey for the other individuals?
Yeah. I like to ensure that whatever is being shared is consistent across the board. So whether you're 5 miles ahead on the journey, and yet we have some people in the group or in the team who maybe are not that far ahead, I give the same, the same thing, the same education, the same, and again, we talk about that everybody is at a different place in this journey. Some of this stuff might be repeat for some of you. Some of it you might be hearing for the first time. And what we really celebrate is that you're listening.
Yes.
We celebrate that because it starts with that. The inclusion piece is a choice that we make. As I mentioned, it's very deliberate. It's about acknowledgement and recognition. And it's very purposeful. So if people are taking the time to listen, we celebrate that too.
Absolutely. I love that. That's fantastic message right there. We've talked about leadership and kind of from the top down, so to speak, structurally, how we can start to implement inclusivity and really reach employees from the other perspective. How can organizations empower and support their employees to become more effective allies for diversity and inclusion and play a greater role themselves within the workplace?
Right. So I love that question. And, from my perspective, I am a very big advocate that many voices get things done. And what gets measured gets done. So, as an individual contributor, be loud and proud if it's something that you're comfortable with advocating for. And your, courage to do that will often inspire others to do the same if that is something that they are passionate to advocate for as well. And allyship comes in so many different shapes and forms. Allyship can be overt in front of other people, but it can also, be private between yourself and another colleague or teammate. But there is strength in numbers. So as an individual contributor, if you are comfortable and can and are able, then absolutely, share your voice, and chances are you'll inspire others to do the same as well.
I love that. Yeah, it really is the cultural approach. Any specific emerging trends or developments you anticipate in terms of shaping the future of DEI and within the workplace? Anything that is evolving or changing, or anything that you can see happening in the near future?
Well, as I briefly alluded to as well in my presentation, there is a little bit of skepticism emerging around the effectiveness of unbiased training. And the kind of concern with it is that it gives us an excuse per se, but not really, if we want to kind of look at it that way a little bit, to say, oh, well, I have a bias towards, what have you. So I really think kind of the shift that may be taking place coming into the future of DEI work is, as I mentioned, about the reflecting on your own bias. So rather than focusing so much on, training your employees and your organization on what is unconscious bias, it's allowing them the opportunity to reflect on what their own is, and helping to provide the tools and resources so that they can move forward from or mitigate or reduce how that impacts the relationships they have, how they conduct work, performance and productivity and all of the above. So I think it's going to be more of a shift from that sort of mandatory type training to say this is what this is and we all have it, versus take a look at your own and here are some tools that you can use to have it be less harmful in your relationships and in your business.
Well, I respect that. I think that more introspective approach kind of shifting in the future. Any suggestions, strategy-wise, tools specifically for individuals to develop that self-reflection, that self-awareness? Because it's hard, right? With bias, sometimes it exists and we don't recognize it or see it as bias.
It is. So as you mentioned, my kind of life motto is it's about the journey and not the destination. So, I encourage everyone, read something, watch something, have an open mind, and approach it with a growth mindset to say, I'm going to take 5 minutes of my day today to read about, this, and think about how it impacts you. Think about how you might use it or not use it, depending on what you're reading. And take it as an opportunity to put it in your, in your knowledge bank, right? So in terms of, how can we look at strategies to do that from an individual standpoint? It can start just as simple as that.
I like that. Very simple, easy to implement, and yet can create such growth. No, that's absolutely wonderful. You've touched on some incredible key points and some amazing information. Anything else you'd like to share? Anything that we haven't touched upon? Any additional information in terms of last remarks or anything we might have missed?
I think just again, the main home run for me is that we are all at that different place. And if we're open to it, we can inspire and motivate others to be open to it as well, and work together for it. I know a lot of our organizations are more remote based. You may not have as regular interactions with your team members. And in terms of the psychological safety piece, when you do connect with your teammates or your colleagues, if you are a promoter and supporter of a psychologically safe place, tell them it. Just say it.
Yeah.
Right? Because we don't know things. We're not mind readers. Would be nice if we were, but saying it, openly communicating, that I advocate for a safe space, others will follow suit as well. And then your colleagues know that they can build that trust with you and with your team.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. In terms of training, if a workplace is not providing or not further along in their own journey, is there any ones you could suggest that is just across the board any employee could access or kind of refer to?
Absolutely. So LinkedIn Learning has, great quick soundbite informations on everything from, conflict in the workplace to mental health to psychological safety. So there's lots available there. McKinsey research as well. Again, quick information. They have amazing blogs and articles about the research they've done, especially on psychological safety and how it improves effectiveness in teams. And then if you want to dive a little bit deeper, there are, intercultural courses or diversity, equity, and inclusion courses. Obviously, those would be a little bit more of a commitment for you, but many of the colleges and universities are offering, either course by course, micro-credential options. all of those sorts of things that you can dive a little bit deeper into those topics.
Yeah, no, great recommendations. Quick question from the chat box. How do you address criticism about your team not being diverse and inclusive, yet someone's diversity might not be visual and your team is actually diverse?
Right. Great question. So again, back to that psychologically safe environment about, the criticism and whatnot, and, about diversity in general. Diversity is best displayed as an iceberg, right? Where certain things are above the surface and we can see them, and much, much more is hidden below the surface. And how do we learn about those things? We learn by listening and communicating with one another. And when someone is comfortable enough to share those diversity markers with us. So, criticism from someone in terms of that, it sounds like they're only contemplating what is the visible diversity, that representation piece. So what we might approach with someone like that is to, offer them that little bit of awareness and education piece to say, diversity has many dimensions, and a lot of it is not known until we get to know our colleagues. If you offer it to them, if you'd like to know a little bit about our team, we welcome you to a coffee chat or a lunch or something to get to know us better. And then that gives the opportunity for your team to share what diverse aspects they bring to the table. We always want to approach things, as I mentioned, diversity, equity, inclusion can be a very quickly heated topic. It can be, difficult conversations. So we always want to approach it from the aspect that maybe this person doesn't look at these things from the lens that we do.
Right.
And how can we meet them where they are and broaden their lens?
Okay. No, I love that. Again, going back to really highlighting, like you had mentioned, the safety, creating that space and utilizing those communication techniques.
Absolutely.
Another question from the chat box. What are the best methods we can use to gather employee feedback from employees about their experiences related to inclusion and diversity to make them feel comfortable?
Right. So we touched a little bit on the, employee surveys. Those may only be offered once or twice a year, perhaps. What you can do amongst your teams, if your team is comfortable, hold a roundtable discussion. Offer out a confidential survey or share opportunity. Many more people are more comfortable sharing things if it's anonymous, right? So I've had some leaders, share a sheet, fill it out, what's your top 3 favorite things, or, share something about your background, or, and you can get creative with what you're asking or how you're asking it. And if you make it anonymous, you'd be surprised at the more honest responses that you get. And then you can always, collaborate all of that and share it back to the team as a whole, and keep it anonymous in that respect, and just say, 3 people from our team, example, right, indicated that movies are their favorite thing to do in their spare time, or indicated that they're from, maybe from this country or speak this language or something like that. And again, without pinpointing or calling anybody out on anything, you can share that feedback with your whole team, and discuss openly from there.
Those are some great ideas, definitely. And again, keeping those communication, dialogues going. What are your thoughts? Another question from the chat box on employee resource groups. How can they contribute to an inclusive workplace, and how should we support them?
Yes, employee resource groups, extremely important to my heart. So I was a co-chair for over a year of one of the employee resource groups before moving into our diversity, equity, and inclusion office. Employee resource groups are an immensely powerful tool in the workplace. So they serve several functions. Number one, they bring people together around a common cause. And whether you are an identifying member of that community or you are just there to learn more about the community or support as an ally to that community, they build an immense network of people all towards the same idea or same concept or same community. So that's kind of what they do. They also allow for employees that sense of belonging because you find your tribe, as they call it, right? How they can improve your workplace is they can offer that psychologically safe space because everyone is there for the same reason. And they can collect feedback on important concerns or issues happening in the workplace, and they can be that collective voice to help encourage change. As I mentioned, many voices, right, get things done.
Definitely.
Employee resource groups also really can amplify the voice of employees. So when they participate in education or awareness initiatives throughout the workplace, they are really amplifying the voice of employee and spreading that awareness and bringing the education to the table. They're the subject matter experts for their group. You know, they can be consultants to bigger strategies for your organization. Because perhaps the person who's leading up that strategy maybe isn't the subject matter expert in that area. You know, so they really do bring benefit not only to employees, but also to organizations as a whole in that respect.
Those are some great points. Absolutely. And just trying to be mindful of time, our last question from the chat box. It's been so hard to keep my people in my organization. How can I ensure that our inclusion efforts positively impact employee engagement and retention?
So putting my HR hat on from here, you know, a lot of that can come down to why, you know, are you conducting exit interviews to find out why your people are leaving? You know, many individuals leave organizations for several different reasons, but the number one actually is due to, right, not being inclusive or being a psychologically toxic environment. So if you're not currently conducting exit interviews, I highly encourage you to, or your HR department to be doing that. It's going to give you that really insightful feedback as to why people are leaving. And you can build your strategy out from there. If you're having conversations with employees who maybe are coming to you before, you know, there's that term kind of quiet quitting. If you're not familiar with what quiet quitting is, I highly encourage you to Google, just take a look. But you know, but quiet quitting is also something that is happening quite often as well. If you recognize any of the signs of that in one of your colleagues or teammates, offer them the opportunity to chat about it. And it can be a private and confidential conversation. You know, it can be an invitation to chat with another trusted employee. Not everybody's comfortable talking with their leader, you know, directly. So offer the opportunity that if they feel better to have a trusted colleague or maybe a member of HR or whatever, it's really about offering and encouraging that open conversation to find out what is going on. Because again, people leave for a specific reason, right? Absolutely. So if we can identify what that is, we can build a strategy to fix it. If inclusion is the reason that they're leaving, that they don't feel that the workplace is acknowledging and recognizing and actually truthfully being diverse and inclusive, that's going to take a bit more work. But you can start with you. You can start with you. You can start with your team, and you can begin to influence change in the rest of the organization by, again, being that role model, an active participant in it.
No, I love that. That's great messaging. Rose, unbelievable information today. Thank you so much. It's been an incredible learning experience. I can't wait to check out some of the resources that you've mentioned. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you again to our sponsors who, without you, this would not be possible. And thank you to everyone who's attended today. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, and look forward to seeing you next time.